The heat is the first thing, not the comfortable heat of a hearth on an autumn evening. This is the specific, consuming heat of a city on fire. The kind that hits your face from a block away, that dries the moisture from your eyes before you can blink, that makes the air itself feel solid. You are standing on DeKoven Street on the near southwest side of Chicago. Behind you, the city is burning. In front of you, the city is burning. Above you, the sky is the color of iron, orange and red and black, pulsing with the light of a fire that has stopped being contained by any single building and has become something else entirely. It is approximately 11:30 p.m. on October 8th, 1871. The fire has been burning for roughly 2 hours. In the next 36 hours, it will consume 4 square miles of the most densely built city in America. It will kill between 250 and 300 people. It will leave 100,000 people, 1/3 of Chicago's entire population, without a home. You do not know that yet. You are still trying to understand how it spread so fast. How does a city this large, this modern,
Dry again. Been dry since July. Not tonight, though.
this confident in its own future, burn to the ground in a single night? To understand what is happening tonight, you need to understand what Chicago was in 1871. Chicago in 1871 is not a frontier town. It is the fastest growing city in the world.
Another great day and
A city of 300,000 people that did not exist 40 years earlier, built almost entirely from timber, in a landscape so flat and so dry that fire has always been its specific vulnerability. The buildings are wood. The sidewalks are wood. The roads in many districts are paved in wood. The warehouses along the Chicago River are packed with grain, lumber, coal, and spirits. The whole city is a combustible grid. Block after block of pine-framed buildings standing close together in a city that has had almost no rain since July. The summer and autumn of 1871 have been the driest in Chicago's recorded history. By October, the fire department has already responded to 29 fires. In the week before tonight, the men are exhausted. The equipment is overextended. The city is a tinderbox that everyone can see, but no one has done anything about. The fire begins in or near the barn of Patrick and Catherine O'Leary at 137 DeKoven Street at approximately 9 p.m. on October 8th.
Fire southwest. Box 342. I'll send 319.
The legend, the one that newspapers printed and that has never entirely died, is that Catherine O'Leary's cow kicked over a lantern and started the fire. This is almost certainly not true. Mrs. O'Leary was almost certainly asleep. The real cause of the fire was never definitively established. What is established? Within 30 minutes of the first alarm, the fire has outrun the city's ability to respond to it. A critical alarm box, Box 342, positioned closest to the fire, was not triggered by the first watchman to spot the blaze. By the time the alarm reached the fire department, the fire had been burning for 45 minutes and was already in the walls of multiple buildings. Then the wind comes, a dry south-southwest wind, blowing at approximately 30 miles per hour, picks up the burning embers from the O'Leary barn and carries them north across the Chicago River. Each ember lands on a wood-shingled roof. Each landing starts a new fire. The fire department, already stretched, cannot be everywhere simultaneously. The city begins to burn in multiple places at once. Now, back to where you are standing. The sky is burning, and the wind is not stopping. Go back to the beginning of the evening. It is Sunday, October 8th, 1871. The day has been ordinary, dry, warm, slightly windy, the kind of autumn Sunday that Chicagoans have lived through all season. The streets are quiet by 9 p.m. Churches have let out. Families have gone inside. At 9:09 p.m., a fire alarm sounds on the south side. Within minutes, the first fire engines, horse-drawn, coal-fired steam pumpers, are moving through the streets toward DeKoven Street. The firefighters who respond are the same men who answered 29 calls in the previous 7 days. They are tired in a way that does not fully go away between shifts. When they arrive, the O'Leary barn is already fully involved. Every board, every beam, every bale of hay burning. The heat drives the firefighters back from close range. They work the perimeter, trying to contain the burn to the single structure. For a few minutes it seems possible. Then a burning brand, a piece of flaming wood lifted by the wind, crosses the alley and lands on the roof of the next building. Then another brand lands beyond that. The fire is not spreading. The fire is jumping. A burning fragment rises on the heat, carried northeast by the dry October wind, lands 50 meters away, and where it lands, a new fire begins. The firefighters run to the new fire. Another brand flies over their heads while they run. By 10 p.m., the fire has crossed the south branch of the Chicago River. The firefighters are no longer trying to extinguish anything. They are attempting fire breaks, demolishing buildings ahead of the fire's path to starve it of fuel. But the wind is faster than the demolition teams. Every fire break they create, the fire simply jumps. At 10:30 p.m., a burning brand crosses the main branch of the Chicago River and lands on the north side. The north side of Chicago begins to burn. The fire department's horses are beginning to fail from heat and exhaustion. The steam pumpers need water pressure. And as the fire reaches the waterworks on the north side, the pumping station that supplies water pressure to the entire city, the pressure begins to drop. At approximately 1:30 a.m. on October 9th, the waterworks fails completely. The fire department has no water. In that silence, in the moment when the hoses go flat and the men understand what has just happened, the fire becomes something no human agency in 1871 Chicago can stop. The city is now burning freely. The only thing that can end this is rain, or the lake, or running out of city. What follows is the most complete destruction of an American city before or since. By the early hours of October 9th, the fire has reached the heart of Chicago. The commercial district, the grand stone and brick buildings that Chicagoans believed were fireproof, is burning. It turns out that fireproof and fire-resistant are not the same thing. The iron and stone facades stand. The wooden floors, the wooden staircases, the wooden internal structures of buildings that presented stone faces to the street, these burn. Buildings collapse from the inside, while their exteriors remain standing. The city's grandest structures become hollow shells. You can hear the fire before you can see it. A sustained roar, directional, coming from a sky that is entirely, uniformly orange. People are running north toward Lake Michigan, the one place in the city where the fire cannot follow. They carry whatever they could grab in the time they had: a photograph, a deed to property, a child's coat. Some carry nothing. Some are still in their night clothes. The Chicago River is no longer a barrier. It is burning. The surface of the river itself is burning where oil and turpentine and spirits from the warehouse district have spilled into the water. You are among those moving north. The lakeshore is filling with people. Tens of thousands standing at the waterline with everything they own. Some wade in up to their knees to escape the radiant heat from the fires burning on the shore behind them. The city they are looking at, the skyline of Chicago, the symbol of American ambition built in a single generation, is entirely engulfed. The sky above it is the color of a furnace. The fire burns through all of October 9th. The fire front advances at approximately 2 city blocks per hour, fast enough that a person walking at normal pace can barely keep ahead of it. The fire has consumed the south side, the downtown district, and is moving through the north side, block by block. At 11 p.m. on October 9th, 26 hours after it began, it rains. A light, steady rain, not dramatic, not a storm, just rain. The specific, ordinary rain that Chicago had not seen since July, arriving now, 26 hours too late, for 18,000 buildings and 100,000 people. By the morning of October 10th, 36 hours after the O'Leary barn first caught fire, the Great Chicago Fire is over. 300 people dead, 100,000 homeless, 18,000 buildings destroyed, $200 million in losses, approximately $5 billion in today's money. The grain elevators that made Chicago the food distribution capital of the continent are gone. The banks and insurance companies are shattered. Several insurers simply ceased to exist on the morning after the fire, unable to pay what they owe. What is left is the lake, the sky, the ash, and 300,000 people deciding what to do next. What Chicago does next is the part of this story the world does not expect. The fire ends on the morning of October 10th. By October 11th, 36 hours after the last flames, construction has already begun. Not patching and repairing, building from the ground up. New foundations, new streets, new blocks, in the same location, on the same grid, on the ash. The decision not to relocate the city, not to rebuild elsewhere, not to start over in a less vulnerable place, but to rebuild Chicago exactly where it burned, faster and better than before, is one of the most remarkable collective decisions in urban history.
Bigger footprint than what was here. They want 4 stories. Brick. Right then.
Within weeks, the streets are full of construction workers. Within months, the first permanent buildings are rising on streets that were ash. Within 2 years, the city that burned has been replaced by a city that is larger, denser, and built from entirely different materials. The architects who come to rebuild Chicago do not rebuild in wood, they rebuild in steel. And in doing so, on these streets, in response to this fire, they invent something that does not yet have a name in 1872, but that will define every major city on Earth within 50 years. They are about to invent the skyscraper. Aid arrives from around the world. London sends books to replace the destroyed libraries. Cincinnati, Milwaukee, and St. Louis send food, tools, and money. Queen Victoria sends a personal letter of condolence. 3 years after the fire, Chicago's population exceeds what it was before. 10 years after the fire, Chicago is the fastest-growing city in America again. The fire did not end Chicago's rise. It accelerated it. The Great Chicago Fire changes everything it touches. Begin with the buildings. The home insurance building, completed in Chicago in 1885, 14 years after the fire, is the first steel-frame skyscraper in history, 10 stories. Load-bearing steel frame, the template for everything that came after. Every glass and steel tower you have ever seen in any city on Earth, in London, in New York, in Dubai, in Lagos, in Shanghai, descends in a direct architectural line from that building, which exists because a barn on DeKoven Street burned in 1871. The Great Chicago Fire did not just destroy a city. It forced the invention of the architecture that defines the modern world, now the fire codes. Before 1871, most American cities had no meaningful regulations governing building materials, setback distances between structures, or fire resistance requirements.
The code is adopted.
Within 2 years of the fire, Chicago had enacted the most comprehensive building code in the United States. Within a decade, cities across America had followed. Every building regulation that governs how your home, your office, your school is constructed today, the fire separation distances, the exit stairwell requirements, the sprinkler systems, traces a direct line to the night Chicago burned. Now the insurance industry. The fire bankrupted 56 insurance companies in a single week. Out of that insolvency came the modern reinsurance industry, the global system by which insurance companies spread catastrophic risk across multiple firms in multiple countries. Every insurance policy in the world today is structured using risk models that the Chicago Fire helped create. And then the thing no one puts on a plaque. Catherine O'Leary, the Irish immigrant woman who owned the barn, was blamed almost immediately. A Chicago Tribune reporter named Michael Ahern wrote that her cow kicked over a lantern and started the fire. The story spread across America and Europe within days and stuck there for more than a century. Ahern admitted, before he died, that he had invented it. The city investigation in 1871 found no evidence implicating Mrs. O'Leary. She was investigated, cleared, and then blamed for 126 years by a public and a press that needed a simple explanation for a systemic failure. What destroyed Chicago was not one woman's carelessness. What destroyed Chicago was a city built entirely from wood, in the driest summer of its history, with an exhausted fire department, failed alarm systems, inadequate water infrastructure, inadequate building regulations, and an absolute confidence that a catastrophe of this scale could not happen here.
The council hereby resolves that Catherine O'Leary and her cow are innocent.
In 1997, the Chicago City Council formally exonerated Catherine O'Leary and passed a resolution clearing her name. She had been dead for more than a century by then. The fire teaches what every catastrophe in this channel has taught, that the disasters we do not prepare for are always the ones we were completely certain could never occur. You have just stood on DeKoven Street on the night of October 8th, 1871. You have watched a city burn from its own confidence. You have stood at the lakeshore with 100,000 people watching the skyline they built disappear into orange light. Chicago is still there. The skyline that rose from the ash became the model for what a modern city looks like. Every tall building in every city on Earth carries something from this fire. The site of the O'Leary Barn is at 137 DeKoven Street, Chicago. It is now the training academy for the Chicago Fire Department. Every firefighter in Chicago learns their craft on the exact ground where the city burned because it had no one skilled enough to stop a fire like this. You could not invent that if you tried. Thank you for going back with us. If this took you somewhere, not just a street, but a night, a heat, an orange sky you cannot look away from, please subscribe. We go back every week, every disaster, every battle, every turning point that built the world you are living in right now. Tell us in the comments, what moment in history do you want us to take you back to next? We read every single one. We'll see you in the next moment.